grow indoors and then transplant them to the outside. And one of the things I want to talk with Bob about this morning is when you have indoor plants that you brought in last fall, but then you took them, you want to get them back out there on the patio, absorbing the warmth of the sun and all of those things. How do you go about that properly? So let's get into it. Mr. Pollock is in the studio now because the light finally changed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Our visit this morning, presented by Marcus and Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row. In the Best of Indiana County contest, visit them online at marcusandmack.com. We have talked about this in the past. People have plants, sometimes they're tropical plants even, that they keep outdoors in the summertime, taking advantage of the warmth and the humidity.
Yes.
But then let's assume that sometime in the next month or so, weather's going to warm up, and we'll be able to begin to think about getting those plants back outdoors because they really do thrive so much more in the outdoor sunshine, and they're able to enjoy that a little bit more. But you can't just stick them out there. Once the weather warms up, you can't just throw them out there and say, okay, grow.
True.
Take it from there.
You want me to take it from there?
You have to train them, don't you?
To a degree. It's more about observing the conditions that each one of those plants need to thrive, and understanding what temperature, moisture, humidity, light levels that each of those different, we group plants together, so we call them tropicals. But within that, there's a lot of subdivisions that, some need more humidity than others, and some need more light. Some only thrive, they're tropical, but they might be down on the rainforest floor, and really are shade plants. But yet they still require the temperatures and humidity conditions that these other similar plants do, but it might just be the light levels that vary to a great degree. So, understanding, knowing what plant you have, and then trying to provide the best conditions you can for that. So you might not bring all those tropical plants outside at the same time. And then, so you might have to stagger that, and then, or, if you tried to simplify it a little bit and kind of have plants that need similar conditions, then you can group those together and, keep them in and bring them out. And then it just comes down really to the temperature conditions that are there, and making sure that, because oftentimes, yes, we'll warm up in the daytime, but then at night we might dip down in the 40s, and those plants really like to have it at least maybe 55 is what the low temperature for the day they would prefer to have. So we have to be careful about that.
My banana tree probably isn't going to produce as much as I want it to this year. We have a caller for you this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a question about hydrangea that we've had planted now for probably 2 years, and they get approximately 18 inches tall, green, but have not had a flower on them yet.
Yes, there are a plethora of different hydrangeas. It is amazing how many different, and a lot of them come out because, got a different color or something. And then the newer ones that have come out are, maybe I should just back up here. Used to be that we would just have, we didn't have near as many cultivars. And oftentimes those hydrangeas were marginal hardiness-wise here. So if we'd have a mild winter, we might get through the winter and have a little bit of dieback, but not very much. And some, they got killed to the ground. But the plant itself was still alive and had to send up new shoots. And then second thing is they would only bloom on new wood. Okay? So even if you did get them killed back, you would let them grow and they would still flower. In more recent years, we have a whole bunch of different new cultivars that will bloom on both old wood and new wood. And that's actually helpful to us because we might get a hard winter, or we might get a cold snap in the winter that's good enough to, cold enough to kill those buds that formed last fall. And so we won't get that early bloom, but if we let it grow during the summer, we should get blooms coming on during even August into September on that new wood. So, depending on the cultivar you have, that will greatly influence kind of how you manage that plant.
Has this plant ever had flowers on it?
They had flowers on them before we transplanted them.
Okay. As in you had them in the ground, you lifted them and you moved them to a different spot? Or
No,
when you originally planted them?
Yeah, they were plotted.
Potted plants. Okay.
Potted
All
plants.
right. Yes. Yeah, that's typical also. So what might be happening, and how long have you had those in the ground now?
This will probably be the third year for them.
Third year. Okay. So what could be happening is those buds that were formed, late last summer into fall, the new flower buds as well as leaf buds, those could have been killed over the winter, and that's why you didn't get flowers yet.
So can he expect that it'll recover?
And sometimes those things can be finicky because I have several different hydrangeas, and I've had a couple years where they didn't bloom at all, or all that growth got killed off, or at least the buds got killed off. Sometimes I get stem dieback as well. Not only are the buds killed, but some of the stems die back. And so you just have to wait for that new growth coming up from the base of the plant to replace that. And then hope that we have a long enough growing season that those put on enough growth, make flower buds, and get the flower that same year.
Yeah. I don't know that we've answered every question that you have this morning, but we've taken a shot.
Because it definitely comes back to whether you have a straight kind of, and you can still have a cultivar within the species, but the older type where they only bloom on old wood or last year's wood. And then if it's one of the ones that will do both of those things, and most of the newer cultivars are kind of like that, where they'll bloom on both new wood that grows this year and the old wood from last year. You just have to let it go. And so now we're at that time frame almost where those buds might be starting to swell and open up on the plant. And so you just got to take a good close look at those. I always just let mine, so let's see what they're going to do. I have a couple that I could just cut back right now because they've gotten, they're 4.5 feet tall. But I'm going to let them there and see what comes out. Is that wood truly alive? Are those buds alive? Let's see what it does, because that, if so, then those are probably going to bloom on that growth that's there. But if it's, if it doesn't come out, or if the leaves are twisted and curled like they had some cold damage or freeze damage, then I'll go in and I'll nip those back and let the new growth come up in there, and then hopefully get a better flower display.
So there is hope.
The other
give
thing
up on your hydrangeas.
You're right. The other thing is in the pruning management.
Uh-huh.
Just because of what we talked about. So if you have the growth from last year, we'll have flower buds on it, regardless. So if we prune those back hard in the spring, we're pruning off the flowers. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to have to wait until summer and new growth to get flowers. If we leave that there now, what's there now, leave it there, because there are flower buds and leaf buds on there. If we leave that then, as long as it lives and survives, then you should get blooms on that growth from last year.
Hold on to your hope.
Thank you.
I hope that's clear as mud now. Hydrangeas are an interesting plant. We get into a little bit warmer zones farther south. Mm-hmm. They don't have these problems that we do here. And because some of the species, as well as cultivars, can be slightly on the edge here as far as hardiness goes, we always get into this dilemma each year, because if we have a nice cold snap during the winter, that can be enough to set those plants back, at least stunt them or damage those buds, or get some dieback on those plants. Now, if they're in a more protected location, then they tend to make it through okay.
All right, there we go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think we beat them to death with that flower, the hydrangea story. My goodness gracious, wore me out.
They're very nice plants, really, and I think that's what in the flowers, the bloom, and some of them have monster-sized blooms on them, and then also once they're done flowering, the seed heads on those can be used in arrangements and things, and they're just kind of a neat plant. It's just, in our neighborhood here, we can have some frustration with them because they're not always consistent. And you see the pictures of those plants, and they look, wow, this is really amazing. I want that in my yard. And then plus the color variation with hydrangeas, you can, if you have acidic soil, you'll get blue flowers, and alkaline soil, you'll get pink flowers.
If we were further south, would we have a better shot at
Oh, yeah.
Healthier
because we
hydrangeas?
wouldn't have to worry about this hardiness issue. And so we would have plants that really wouldn't get dieback on them, and then you have to look at them and maybe cut them back all the way to the ground and let the new growth come up. We wouldn't have to do that if we were about probably 2 hours south is all it would probably take.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's just kind of the difference between Zone 5 and Zone 6 kind of.
Yeah. All right, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob Pollock, the Extension Service. I have a headache. It's Indiana in the Morning, and it's WCCS, 2 minutes away from 8 o'clock.
I think we gave you one last week, too.